Hi. I saw this film in the early 80s and it was a real revelation. I hadn't been exposed to much art cinema. My usual was Clint Eastwood in westerns or playing Dirty Harry. So seeing this movie made me realize that filmmaking could go way beyond simple storytelling. I was blown away, but at that stage I didn't know that the German director Wim Wenders was also a well-regarded photographer. His photo series, Written in the West, was exhibited at the Centre Pompedou in 1986. Now that's a big deal. It's a bit like being shown at MOMA in the US. The images were taken during a recce trip that Wenders went on in 1983. He traveled across Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico, looking at potential filming locations and sources of inspiration. So 1983 was a hugely creative and transformational year for Wenders. The photographs that he took became a significant body of work, and he laid the foundations for his famous film Paris, Texas. I'm going to look at what he was seeing and photographing on this recon trip, and how his impressions find their way into his famous film.
They say that the camera never lies, but it can stretch the truth.
Crazy, man.
What makes a man do this?
Vim Venders used Kodachrome film and 2 cameras. He had a Leica and a 6x7 Makina Plowball. His images are filled with light and color, and this would have been a sharp contrast from his hometown in Düsseldorf. He was fascinated by the small town Paris, Texas, but even though the name stuck, he didn't land up using the location for his film. Like so many photographers who became directors, Wenders maintains a photographer's eye. Throughout this video, I'm going to juxtapose his stills with scenes from the film to emphasize the strong link. Paris, Texas was shot on location over 4 to 5 weeks, and the film won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in 1984. The overall theme is one of redemption and healing. The main character, Travis, is an anti-hero, played by Harry Dean Stanton. Reviewers of the film almost unanimously gave it a 5-star masterpiece rating. But for this video, I read one crit where the reviewer accused Wenders of being a misogynist for not developing the female character sufficiently. However, all of the characters in this film are lost and their lives are a real mystery. Also, even though the camera focuses on Stanton for most of the film, he's someone who's wrestling with what's left of his own masculinity. Stanton, playing Travis, is seen at the start of the film as a disheveled guy seen walking through the West Texas desert in a shabby suit and tie. He's agonized by a secret history of guilt and shame. In the background, you can hear Ry Cooder's slide guitar theme, which became an instant classic. Travis's missing wife, Jane, is played by Natasha Kinski. There's a beautiful reunification sequence which is one of cinema's most memorable scenes. It's also very photographic in its structure. Travis tracks down his wife Jane, and she's working at a seedy peep show joint. And that's where the customers watch women through one-way windows. In the scene, Wenders uses the color pink brilliantly to hold the frame.
Is there something, I don't know, is there something I can do for you?
Travis is looking through the glass onto his ideal of femininity, which for him is untouchable. This has probably become the most famous Kinski scene. In this follow-up, Wenders juxtaposes Travis's face on her face and body. This was before complex combinations of reflections and shadows that one sees in photography today. Wenders grew up in Europe, where the architecture reflects centuries of development and culture. For him, the US was raw and unmade. You can see that he was drawn to the open space, the light and colors, but also he had a fascination with the crude architecture of these small towns. He said that when he was taking these pictures, he felt that everything had a transient quality. If circumstances changed, you could get the feeling that people would just move on and things that you saw on one day would not be there the next. You get a sense of this lightness of being from his photographs, but also from scenes in his movie. Wenders was careful not to get too overawed by the impressive landscape that one finds in the Western USA. But he wanted to show the fragile balance of the wild open spaces juxtaposed with these small towns. Most of his still images are without humans, and he says that's because he wanted to show that these towns are fairly basic examples of civilization. His images aren't stark, but they highlight these uncertain human attempts to create a barrier against the untamed desert. He includes neon lights as a way of showing this need to assert a human presence within the dark wilderness. He and the scriptwriter Sam Shepard also had a fascination with roadside diners and motels, with all the accessories like ice machines and aircon and TV. Like so many foreigners growing up under the influence of American films and pop culture, Wenders was aware of the nostalgia and the cultivated myth of the American dream. The film examines the idealistic fantasy of the wholesome middle-class American family. He's reacting to the universal sadness when one becomes aware that it is essentially an illusion.
I know it's none of my business.
I'm gonna need to take money, credit cards.
All right, sure, you can have it.
You know, you'll get it back.
Oh, forget that. You can have it.
I want to find it, Walt.
He uses the visual symbols that epitomize the American West to produce this feeling of nostalgia. The film isn't over-stylized, and he uses natural light and heavy contrasts to draw everything back to the realm of the real. If you haven't seen this film or the book, then go out and find them, because they're really worth looking at. You have to put them in context with the fact that he made this work in the early 80s. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.